Hey world, this being will come back with another video. God, I want to come back with this heat because, like myself, growing up in the 80s in school, we didn't get taught about the Middle East conflict, but I knew back in the 80s, a lot of the conscious rappers, Boogie Down Productions, Kevin KRS-One, and the Jungle Brothers, De La Soul, a bunch of conscious rappers back in the day, used to, I said, matter of fact, Self-Destruction was one of my favorite rap songs back in the day. If you 50 or a little younger or older, you remember that jam, Self-Destruction, by KRS-One and Boogie Down Production. But I wanted to get into this video today, guys, because I think history is important. And like I say, we never was taught about the Middle East conflict, what it's about, who it involved, and why does it still exist today. Okay, I think a lot of times, when we talk about certain conflicts, we put them in the context of time, and we think that things have always happened, but they haven't. Okay, so in the Middle East, guys, the area, Palestine, that area back then in the early 1900s was really occupied by like maybe 86% Muslims. Maybe had maybe 10% Jews or 6%. There wasn't a lot of Jewish people. What I mean by Jewish people, I mean individuals that was practicing Judaism. Not all people were Muslims, but in that region, it was like 86% Muslims in that region. Okay, and so the Jewish people that came to Palestine, they were small numbers. I mean, let's equate this to this. Give you an example. Let's say the state of California, right, would be Palestine. And you had one town, that had occupied with Jewish people. But the rest of California, Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, all of that was pretty much Palestinians or, Muslims, okay? And so it was but they all lived together. Even though there was a small number of Jewish people living in Palestine at that time, they all lived together. They lived together. They shared commerce together. It was kind of like in America now, right? But then there are a group of Jews called Zionists started migrating to Palestine because if we fast forward to the wars of the World War I, World War II, a lot of the so-called Jewish people that were persecuted, they were supposed to be, refugees and sent to America, to the West rather. But they wanted, to be in Palestine. And so the Zionists, which are a group of Jews, they started migrating to Palestine. And so eventually, it got to the point where, and if you know what the Zionist Jews are like, they only kind of do business with each other, only congregate with each other. And so that caused some friction in and caused an imbalance in the economy in Palestine, because when you have this huge group of Zionist Jews coming into your area, and they bring in money, they bring in their own economy, they bring in their own finances and money, and they're only doing business with themselves, it's kind of leaving a lot of people out. Kind of like I would equate it to, if you go to any melanated neighborhood, you see the corner stores in the neighborhood, right? But it's not us running those corner stores. It's foreigners. And those foreigners are not putting money back into the neighborhood. So they, so all you're doing is taking money out. And that's what was going on. And eventually, in Palestine, the numbers began to, it was a disparity. First it was all, that area was occupied by 86, 89% Arabs, Muslims. And all of a sudden now it was this huge number of Jewish Zionists coming in. And it started causing conflicts, because what happened then, the United Nations, think about this, the United Nations came in and going to designate land to the Zionist Jews. Now the Palestinian people have been here a long time, but the UN came in and said, you know what, we're going to take this land and give it to the Jewish people, the Zionist people. Because remember, there's a difference between Jews and Zionist Jews, okay? That difference basically is, that's why if you go to Africa, you know, you have a lot of Jews in Africa, and Sudan and Ethiopia have a lot of Jews there because they're practicing Judaism. That's where the whole concept of Jews come from, because they practice Judaism. And the original Jews that are in Israel right now, I hate to say Israel, and Palestine right now, they are basically converted Jews. They're not the original Jews. They are converted Jews. These individuals came out of the Khazars and were originally the Ashkenazi people. And as Ashkenazis, they chose Judaism, okay? Because remember, these people were migrants and nomads, and so by traveling, they chose Judaism. And this is why religion only serves division. Because at the time when these Jews or these individuals, these Ashkenazi people were migrating, they had Christians on one side of them, wanted them to convert. And then they had the Muslims on the other side, wanted them to convert. Okay? And so what they end up doing? They end up just chose Judaism. And that's how, if you look in the Bible, it says how, I can't think of the chapter and the verse, but you guys that are avid Bible readers know what I'm talking about. When it mentions there are going to be people that call themselves Jews, but are not. Now, there have been a lot of debate on who actually in the text they were talking about. But remember, the Ashkenazis and the Khazars go way back. And so we know that the Ashkenazi Jews chose Judaism, was converted to Judaism. They wasn't the original Jews, okay? And so now when you look at Palestine right now, the Palestinian people know that, hey, wait a minute, these aren't Jews, okay? They come in here and they, bring their own traditions, which is not a problem, but it's actually destroying the fabric of the Palestinian nation in reference to that area. And so getting back to my story with the United Nations, the United Nations granted the Zionist Jews all of this land. How do you go, how are you an outside force and gonna go into another country and say, okay, hey, we're gonna tell you guys you have to leave and we're gonna give this land to these people, okay? Now remember, this was, excuse me, this was before World War II, okay? This was before World War II, where they had a lot of Zionists migrating to Palestine. Now after World War II and the Holocaust, and all these people that were allegedly burned in smoke chambers or gas chambers or all of that, they were granted territory in Palestine based on the fact that they were Jews, but they're not even the real Jews. They converted Jews. So they're not really even the people of God or God's chosen people that they talk about in the Bible. If that's the case, we all are, because they just converted to Judaism. You did? Okay? And so now when you look at the conflict in the Middle East, and I go back to in the 80s when I was in college, and they were talking about, we need peace in the Middle East. You did? And what would that all entail? But the United States and the media never really covered it extensively, nor did they teach us this in school. See, if they'd have taught us the historical aspect of the conflict, then it'd have been we'd have had a better understanding. Because when you talk about that region, you want to talk about, the Israelis. But that land was Palestine. It wasn't called Israel. Israel was the name of a people, not the name of a country. You dig? And so now you're talking about a whole group of people being displaced, the Palestinians being displaced. And go back to my California example. Remember before I said in the early 1900s, majority of California consisted of just Palestinians, Muslims, people that have been there for centuries, right? And then, of course, when some of the Jews, the Zionist Jews came in, they migrated there in small numbers. So, but now, imagine everything just flipped. Now, San Francisco, San Diego, Los Angeles, all of California is now ran by the Zionist Jews. And all the Palestinians that were there, like saying, this is facts, over 250,000 have been kicked out of the land, can't come back, are considered refugees. And you talk about the regions, the Gaza, the Gaza Bank, West Bank. These areas were actually, were pretty much occupied by the people that have been there for many, many, many years, but now they've been kicked out. And now the Israeli government is just occupying more and more and more land under the pretense of the Palestinians not supposed to be there. How? So when you look at it like that, and you see that the United States give Israel almost $3 billion a year, and that they're supposed to be a #1 ally, it really makes you wonder, well, what about the Palestinians, the people that are already there? Okay? And then why hasn't the media ever covered the 33 massacres that were recorded and reported in Palestine by the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Remember, the Palestinians, they don't have the weapons that the Israeli government has. And so when you talk about all the peace in the Middle East, all the conflict in Palestine, a lot of the major battles and the fights were fought on Palestinian land, where most of the Palestinians live, the Palestinian state, not where most of the Israelis live, the Zionists. And so now you have 85 to 90% of all of Palestine is occupied and ran by the Israelis, when in the early 1900s it was flip-flop. How does that happen? And why don't we know that? And why are people deemed anti-Semitic when they just given a historical analysis about what really happened or what's really going on right now in the Middle East? They didn't teach us this. Okay? And so, to the point where, if you go back to when Lyndon B. Johnson was in office, the Israelis attacked the U.S. Navy ship, killing like over 200-some people, and was never condemned for it. And if they was, when you hear about it, think about think about this. What other country can blow up a Navy ship? Oh, wait a minute. That happened in World War II with Japan. You see what happened to Japan, right? Why didn't it happen to Israel? You did? Do your research. Okay? And so there have been countless thousands of Palestinian women and children killed from the bombings and the military aggression by the Israeli army. But we only hear about, like it's a fair fight. It's kind of like, it's like, Mike Tyson going over there and having a conflict with Cat Williams. And we look at that like that's a fair fight. How's that a fair fight? Not only is Mike Tyson way bigger and stronger than Cat Williams. Mike Tyson is a boxer, Cat Williams isn't. Cat Williams have no weapons. Mike Tyson not only have this size, but also have weapons. How's that a fair fight? You dig? And so I just kind of wanted to come back with a little historical analysis of what actually happened and what's going on in the Middle East. And so you think about, Ariel Sharon, who was the prime minister of Israel back in the 80s, I think. And then they had Yasser Arafat, who was a Palestinian president. Growing up, we was under the impression, if you watch the news, that Yasser Arafat was a terrorist and a bad person, while Ariel Sharon was a president needing help. And if you go back and look at all the prime ministers of Israel, of Palestine, of the Zionist leaders, they don't even recognize Palestinians. They say that's not even a people. How does that work? Okay, and so if you're melanated, you really can kind of relate to that. Being in the land already, having people come to the land under false pretenses, like as if they want to do good, and then end up taking over. And then those same disenfranchised people that have been so psychologically economically, just destroyed, eventually becomes what they call Stockholm Syndrome. Because I equate it to the same situation here as in Palestine. But when you know the history of what that conflict is about, it's easy to make that type of analogy or make that type of similarity, right? I mean, think about the Trail of Tears. When all those Native Americans, indigenous people, Americans, true Americans, were marched off their land and sent to an area. A lot of them were killed, and we don't know nothing about it. How many of you guys know about how many Palestinians were killed? Just do your research. Okay? And like I say, I'm sympathetic to both sides, because anytime there's violence is wrong. But when you outnumber and you have the aid and financial aid and military assistance of other countries against a people in the same region, that ain't terrorism? That ain't terrorism. That's just like, if Houston was Palestine, or President of Israel, Houston, H-Town. We got about 5 million people here. And big, nice, it's from the Woodlands to Baytown to Katy, you dig? It's big out here. And all of a sudden, all the Palestinian people were forced out of their homes, off their lands, and had to all live in Galveston. And all of H-Town now is resided by the Zionist Jews. And the Palestinians are in Galveston. And guess what? They can't come past that bridge off 45 because they have the military there. So now you have water, food, medical supplies, everything is being, kind of monitored. So I say this, guys, that I think it's a beautiful thing to be enlightened, to have some history. Because like I say, those who control information controls perception. Okay? And uninformed people make irrational choices and decisions. Okay? And so when you talk about, and when they're talking about Ilhan Omar, the Congress lady, that they call anti-Semitic and telling her she's a racist, listen to what she's talking about. She has uncles in Palestine and can't even go back home. So, we're not supposed to know that? You did? So, like I say, guys, thanks for listening to me. This is a long video. I'm hoping it's enlightens your consciousness on some world affairs. Get outside the box, okay? It's always good to know other things. But guys, like I say, in the meantime, in between time, may the Most High Saudi bring you joy. And being with is out of 5,000.